Hi, everybody. So it's just a minute or two before 10, so I'm dialing in early so I can get the Facebook Live going and make sure the tech is all working. You guys can see me and hear me okay? So if you're watching this on the replay, you could fast forward for a minute or two. Live on Facebook. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Share to my page. Artist Company. Go live. Let's see if this is working. Preparing to live stream the webinar. That's what it says. Done. Redirecting the Facebook page. There it is. Yay. To live stream the webinar. That's what it says. Okay, so let me mute that. Great. So, hi, Roxana. Roxana's here from Peru. Nice to see you, darling. Good. How's everybody else? Who else is here? Let's see. Oh, great. So many of you. I'm so thrilled. Good. Well, hop in and tell me how you are. Tell me what's going on. If you have any questions, anything that's on your mind, anything you'd like an answer to, you can ask the Oracle. I'm here. And I will try to check in with the Facebook page as well, although that's going to be a little more challenging for me because I have to sort of flip back and forth between screens. But we'll see how it goes. This whole thing is a giant experiment. So hooray for experiments, hooray for doing things that make you uncomfortable, hooray for a lot of things. Roxanne says, I'm glad that you're okay. Thank you. Yes, the fires have been a very big deal here. We'll talk about that maybe in a minute too. But yes, we're fine. We're fine. The kitties are fine. Luke is fine. Everybody's fine. And I'm just going to wait till the top of the hour so that people who come in right on time don't feel like they're late. Here we are. I got the top of the hour. Do you? Let's start. Hi, everybody. I'll clap so you know where this beginning is. Hi, everybody. It's me, Sam Bennett from theorganizedartistcompany.com, and welcome to this, our first episode or edition of Sam Unscripted, also known as Sam.tv. No, my team keeps referring to it as Church of Sam. We'll see what this is. It's a big experiment that I'm engaged in. And it feels really weird to not have a big outline next to me, to not have a topic that I'm really feeling, I want to teach you or discuss with you, to not have a offer for you. I don't have a workshop or anything to sell you. And when I was telling my sister about the fact that I was doing this, she goes, did you lose a bet? I'm like, it sort of feels like it. It's very unlike me to do something so sort of off the cuff. But when I realized how resistant I was to this idea, that's when I knew I had to do it. So that can be your first big takeaway today, is if there is something that you are thinking, no way, I can't do that, no way. It's probably a sign you need to do it, or at least try it. So I want to thank you for being part of this experiment with me. And let's start the way I like to start everything, with a little breathing, shall we? Just to remind ourselves that we are breathing physical beings. We have a body that loves us. We have the power to change our state of being. So especially if you're feeling stressed out or distracted or confused or feeling like you're being hard on yourself, let's try a little breathing to center back into what we know is true. So we're going to inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8, and we'll do that 3 times. We'll do that 3 times. I'll count us through it. So let your belly go really poochy soft. Let me take off my glasses. You ready? Let's inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you. Thank you for doing that with me. I feel different. Do you feel different? Notice how different you feel. Notice in what way you feel different. And know that you have the power to bring that change upon yourself any time. And especially as we head into the holiday season, if there are people getting on your nerves, there's financial pressures, there's health issues, there's family stuff, that breathing can save you. It can't change the circumstances. It can't change what's going on in the world, of course not. But it can change you. It can bring you back into balance. It can remind you that you are a loving, breathing, creative person with resources. It can remind you that life is a series of breaths. We're just breathing our way through until we're not breathing anymore. This is your time to breathe. And notice too if you feel a little relaxed. Because the truth is relaxing. When we are relaxed, we have better ideas. When we are relaxed, we have a better sense of humor. When we're relaxed, we are less hard on ourselves and less hard on other people. When we're relaxed, we think of solutions more quickly. We adapt faster. So when you find yourself not relaxed, do everything you can do to get yourself into relaxed. And I realize there's sort of a thing in the culture that says like relaxed isn't real. You know, like if you're not stressed out, you're not working hard enough, or something like that. But that's not really true. And I'm aiming to sort of end the glorification of busy, the glorification of stressed out, this worldwide poker game that we're all playing of like, oh, I'm so busy. Oh no, I'm so busy. No, really, because I was up at 4. I'm so busy. No, I'm so busy. You know, like it's nuts. You don't get bonus points for being busy. You do get bonus points for being productive, and you can be more productive when you are more relaxed. So if you are here on the Zoom or on the Facebook, you are welcome to ask a question. You are welcome to tell me what's up with you. Like I said, I don't have an agenda or a topic for today. My promise to myself was I would just show up and see what happens, say what needs to be said, do what needs to be done, and connect with you in whatever way seemed appropriate to connect with you. Roxana from Peru is here. Roxana says hi, and she says, I'm glad you're okay. Thank you. If you don't know, I live right near where the big California fires are, the Thomas Fire, which has burned over 250,000 acres. And there's 8,000 firefighters fighting it right now. We were under voluntary evacuation for over a week. We were never in mandatory evacuation, so we didn't leave, but we were ready to leave. The cars were packed, we were ready to go at a moment's notice, and we spent a week sort of waiting for a moment's notice. Thanks to some really valiant efforts by the firefighters, the fire moved past where I live in Carpinteria. It did an enormous amount of damage in Ventura and Ojai, moved past us in Carpinteria, and now it's more up in Santa Barbara area. I'm gesturing this way because this way there's some mountains, and on the other side of the mountains is the Los Padres National Forest, and that's what's burning. And after 6 years of drought, it's very dry back there. So it was terrifying. You know, the sky is still solid yellow. I miss air. I miss open windows. I miss going for a walk. Like you can't really breathe in this environment. But it was like all emergencies, a lot of beautiful things came out of it. I was delighted by how many people reached out to me to say, oh, you know, come to our house, or are you okay? Or can we do anything? And that was, you know, a testament to how lovely everyone is. I mean, even people I didn't know were offering, which I think is an important thing. And this might be a good question for you. Are you living your life in such a way that people want to help you? That people are noticing what's up with you? That, you know, maybe not necessarily something as extreme as a brush fire, but are you showing up authentically enough so that people notice when you might need help? And I realize that can be sort of a touchy question, particularly for creatives who are super resourceful, and particularly for women who tend to, I don't know about you, I tend to have a serious case of self-sufficiency disease. So it was a valuable moment for me to go, oh, there's a lot more help available to me than I know there is, or than I make myself know that there is. And that's probably true for you too. So if you're feeling underhelped or under-resourced, think right now, who would reach out to you if they knew you were in trouble? Who would be on your team? Who would you feel comfortable saying, hey, this is hard for me, or I have questions about this, or I need this resource or that resource. Can you help me strategize about how to get it? There's a real taboo around asking for help, and a real sort of self-martyrdom sometimes around like, I find it very difficult to ask for help. It's like, it's right up there with, I'm such a perfectionist. Like, it sounds like you're there's a little bit of pride in it. There can be. So I urge you to take a look at that part that's prideful. We never want to overstay our welcome. We never want to over ask. We never want to seem selfish or grabby. Of course not. But most of you are givers. You give and you give and you give and you give. And oftentimes people aren't offering to help you because they don't know you need help. You're so self-sufficient, they just assume you're fine. So it might be up to you to let them know that you are fine and you could use some help. I'm going to check in for questions. Yep, if you have anything that's on your mind or anything you want to ask me about, please go ahead and post either in the Zoom or on the Facebook page. Okay, how are we doing? Good. So I can tell you a little bit about why I decided to do this. Like I said, mostly it was because I was really frightened to. It seemed like a really scary idea. And I realized that in terms of growing the Organized Artist Company and this community, I needed to do more things more publicly. Like right now, really the only way you find out about things is if you're on my email list. Like once you're on the email list, you find out about everything all the time. But if you're not on my email list, you're kind of not going to know. And even on my website, like you can barely tell I wrote books. Like it's just, the information's just not there. So this is an effort for me to get a little more public about who I am and what I do and what I talk about in a way that's really informal and with no agenda. So there you go. Let's see, Roxana says, how do you attract a young audience to a young audience to handmade things? I'm doing a shared live stream with a calligrapher and we want to talk about our work and how it can benefit people. I think that everybody's attracted to handmade things. I think that even the youngsters who have grown up with everything digital can be easily seduced into the value of doing things with their hands. So I think you want to talk to them about it in language that they would talk about it. So find a few clever young people, pardon me, and ask them, how do they think about calligraphy? How would they think about making things by hand? What did they think the benefit of that might be? How would they put it in their own words? And maybe where's the pain point? Where's the absence? Are they feeling like, I want to do things that made by hand? I want to take time. I want to unplug. I want to creatively express. I want to make something sweet for my lover or my family or my mom or my roommate. What's important to them? And that for all of you, whenever you're trying to communicate about what you do, the problem so many of you have is that you talk about what's interesting to you about it. And then you get shy because you feel like, well, I don't want to be talking about myself all the time. Right. You should not be talking about yourself all the time. You need to be talking to them, about the problems they have, about what's on their mind. And you need to be doing it in the language that they themselves would use. Right. So if I were a doctor and I knew that part of your problem was, low iron, that you were anemic, I probably wouldn't start by saying, iron's the answer to anemia, get on in here and get your iron. Because that's not really meaningful to anybody. Nobody's waking up in the morning going, I wish I was taking more iron. Like, that's not how people think, right? I would, if I were a doctor treating anemia with iron, I would say, tired going down the stairs, nails brittle and breaking, have an urge to chew ice, weaker than you think you should be, even early in the day, come into my office for a free diagnosis, right? So then we're talking to people about the problems that they're, and those are all symptoms of anemia, and I know because I had it. And I kept looking and looking and looking, and it wasn't until it was the chewing ice thing that actually tipped it. When I finally, I was having this uncontrollable urge to chew ice, which is not normal for me. And I was Googling it, and finally it said that could be a symptom of anemia. I was like, oh. And I put it together with the brittle nails and the fatigue, and I went to my doctor, and it turned out I had anemia that was actually life-threatening. It was, my iron level was so low. Luckily, it's an easy fix, right? So yeah, so talk to some of your target market, some of the people, and we're not trying to, convince anybody who's unconvincible. People who aren't into it, they're not into it. Let them go. That's fine. They don't have to be into it. But there's plenty of people who already are. They're looking for something. They're just waiting for you to express it in language that they're using themselves. But that's exciting, Roxanne. I can't wait to see how that goes. That's going to be a great workshop. Shaylin says, look for the helpers, Fred Rogers. Yes, Mr. Rogers. A moment for Mr. Rogers. What a beautiful man. What beautiful work he did and continues to do. Yes, and in any emergency, look for the helpers, because your sense of joy will be restored for sure. Let's see, Daisy says, I have the opposite problem. Really good at asking for help, but given I am trying to work on my own projects, it feels wrong to ask friends to work for me just for the fun of it anymore. I may have overused my asks. Maybe you could ask them. You could just find out. And this is something, as I was tossing around ideas about things I could talk about today, one of the things I thought about was, it might be time for you to stop making other people's decisions for them. I'll say that again. It might be time for you to stop making other people's decisions for them. I had a client in my 365 Club Pro program, which is sort of my advanced high-level program, and she was had some sculptures that she was making available for sale, and she mentioned this to someone who knew her, and they were really excited. Like, oh my gosh, is that sculpture available? And how much is it? And can I get it? And what's the story? And she immediately went into this whole thing of like, oh, they're just asking to be polite. She can't really afford that. I don't really want to bother her. It's going to cost too much to ship. Like, this is what I call swatting money away, right? Like, here's somebody asking to buy art from you, and you're making the decision for them that it's not for them, that like they can't afford it and it's not a good idea. Take people at their word. When they say they're happy to help, assume that they're happy to help. And if you have doubt or question, or your intuition is niggling at you, say, I heard you say that you were happy to help and I believe you, but I'm also having a little intuition niggle that maybe it's not a good time for you. Is that true? I see this all the time with practitioners, coaches, healers, like, oh, my people can't afford to pay that. You don't know that. You don't know that. And even if you know how they live, even if you know what their income level is, people find money for the things that are important to them. And you can tell, right? Because nobody has any money, and then a new iPhone comes out. And all of a sudden, everybody's got $800. Where did the $800 come from? It came from their desire, right? Or your favorite band comes into town, and all of a sudden, you got money for tickets. Because it's important to you. So stop deciding for other people what they want. And take their word for it when they say yes, or when they say no, or when they say the conversation, the imaginary conversation you have in your head of like, oh, I would ask, my spouse to do the dishes, but I know they're just going to roll their eyes and not do it. Well, you don't know that. That may be what's happened 100 times up to now. But you can say, darling, I'm afraid that when I say this, you're going to roll my eyes and not do it, but I'd like to ask you to do the dishes for me. Is that possible? See what happens. See what happens. I'm gonna check on the Facebook. Vixie's here, she says, true. Ingrid says, what did I pack in the cars if I were forced to leave? How did I decide? That's a great question. Yeah, so I've always known that I wasn't much of a thing person. Like, I'm not really into stuff very much. And man, there's nothing like a pending evacuation to make you realize how not into things you are. They're like, you have to be ready to go at a moment's notice. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And then I thought, well, you know, I've got a piece or two of my grandmother's jewelry. I should probably grab that. My computer, the cats, you know, that was pretty much it. And then with a little more time, I packed some clothes. You know, I packed a couple changes of clothes, and I packed all black because I thought, well, that'll all mix and match. And if I can't do laundry for a couple of days, it won't be as noticeable. So I packed all black. I packed, and then Luke said, what about the art? And I said, oh yeah, you're right. So we took the art off the walls and wrapped it in blankets and put that in the book trunk of the car. And then finally at the last minute, I did take some of my writing and journals and stuff. But that was about it. Like, it was really very little. We didn't fill up both cars. Now we don't have a lot of stuff to begin with, but I was amazed at how unattached I was to things. But it's a great question to ask yourself. Oh, I made a file of like critical legal documents, our insurance, bank numbers, medical stuff, like all that, prescriptions, that kind of stuff that we might need the information for if for some reason this place burned down. So I would do all that. I was talking to a friend who said she took all that stuff and put it into Evernote. So she's got it stored in the cloud or on Dropbox. It's really worth doing that. If you haven't backed up your critical documents, make sure you do that. Good. Okay, I've got some Q&A here. Let's see. Maria says, Sam, I love how you practice what you preach. Thank you. I just taught my first teleclass Tuesday night. Yay! It was a huge breakthrough for me to do this and get paid. Now I'm feeling like all these things are jumping at me for my care and attention. Any words around how to balance? Well, yeah, just, first of all, just celebrate. Like, take a minute to really acknowledge what you did, because that's epic. To do your first one, to do any one is huge, but to do your first one is huge. It's such a steep learning curve. There's so much internal resistance, or I had so much internal resistance when I did my first one. So yay you. And then, yeah, all the things that are jumping up at you, make a list, put them all on paper, and then do the things that have to do with money first. Fastest path to cash. What's going to bring in the most money the quickest? And attend to those things first. As creatives, we tend to often not focus on the money, and then we're really surprised and disappointed when we don't have any. So I like put a little green dollar sign next to the things, because it's easy to be like, oh, invoice that person. I'll do it later. No, do it today. And then really look for the things that are going to have the highest impact. So highest income producing activities, highest joy producing activities. And also look for things that other people can do. See if you can farm some of this stuff out. Because you got teleclasses to do. You need a team, babe. Let's see. Leslie says, in the line of doing things that bring up resistance and fear, I'm feeling called to start a podcast on an entrepreneur as a spiritual journey. Yeah. The question is, would anyone on this call be interested? If so, would they be interested in being a guest? Oh, for sure. So that's Leslie Stoller. Leslie, maybe post on the Facebook page so people can get in touch with you. But as far as I'm concerned, entrepreneurship is the spiritual journey. Like, if you're looking for a way to spiritually evolve, dude, start a business, because every lesson you need to learn shows up right in front of you. Every thing that looks like a problem or a challenge is your invitation to grow, to be stronger and braver and better and more tender and more gentle and more complicated and more delighted by the world. Yeah, so go for it, Leslie. Go for it. There's all kinds of data on podcasts too. They're a great place to put some energy right now. I want to look on the Facebook. Legal docs. Yes, didn't even think of that. Yep. Good. All right. Oh yeah, Vixie says yes, CC me. So she's on the facebook.com/orgartco, ORGARTCO. That's the Organized Artist Company Facebook page. So that's where this video will live. And Leslie, if you want to hop over there, I bet people would love to talk to you about it. Jim says, what you said about asking for help is really timely for me. I've been sick since before Thanksgiving, and last week my husband had to go to the ER and ended up having to have surgery the day before yesterday to remove his gallbladder. And because I was still so sick last week, I couldn't be at the ER, so I had to reach out and ask people to help us to be there with him and to help both of us. That day and this whole week or so since then has been a reminder that more help and support are available than I usually realize. Amen. Jen, I'm so sorry that that's such a hard thing to live through, and to not be able to be there with someone you love when they're suffering and in pain, and to not have the energy and to do everything you want to do is really a challenge. So good for you for knowing your limits and asking for help and giving other people the opportunity to help, right? I mean, think about the last time you were able to do something nice for someone and how gratifying it was. Like, it was probably pretty easy for you to do. You know, it was no big deal to bring a covered dish or to write a thank you note or give someone a compliment or make someone feel extra welcome, you know, whatever way it is in which you've helped someone recently. It probably wasn't that big of a deal to you, but it meant a lot to them. So, but if you never ask, they never get the opportunity to do it. So quit being so selfish. Let other people be generous. Shaylin says, what if you want to foster a different conversation, a conversation away from the problem into supporting the positive that isn't being supportive? How do you do that? Well, you can do exactly that. You can use words like imagine, you know, paint the picture for them. Imagine if you had all the energy in the world. Imagine if your nails were strong and you never wanted to chew ice. Imagine, you know, and if you can get people into that state of imagining a better future, you can sometimes get them to invest in that. I will say it's harder. People are more willing to invest in preventing pain or getting rid of pain than they are in a future, particularly around self-help stuff. And I think the reason why is self-belief. It's not so much that they don't trust you, it's that they don't trust themselves. They don't trust themselves to see it through. They don't trust themselves to do it. So, it's certainly, you know, and this is why when you hear marketers talk about, oh, you got to talk about the pain, and it sounds awful. Like, why would we want to stimulate their pain? But it's not meant that way. It's a lot like, again, it's a lot like the doctor when they say, well, show me where it hurts, right? And you say, it hurts when I do this. Oh, okay. Well, now do this. Oh yeah, that hurts even more. Okay, good. That's the, you know, this is how we diagnose the problem, is through the symptoms of the pain. And generally speaking, people don't make changes until things get bad enough for them to be motivated to change. So, you know, you are always holding the space for the better, brighter future. But again, you have to enter the conversation that they are having inside their own mind, right? So it has to relate to how they are expressing their problem to themselves. Let's see, I think this is, for some reason, the chat on the Zoom cuts off your name. So this just says SOF. I'm assuming it's Sophia, but I don't know. She said, you said you had many interests in life and do different things at the same time. Could you tell us how did you integrate different parts of yourself and the things you do so it made sense to who you are and to the people who see you in public and know your work? Great question. Okay. Yeah, I used to be a lot more segmented in my creative endeavors. And in fact, I was sort of in a prison of desire. I felt like only acting counted, only acting mattered. So even though I was making money as a writer, even though I was making money teaching, even though I was making money even coaching people, like only acting mattered. Like I was like this, I was like, only acting matters, only acting matters. Now the problem with that kind of focus is you can see it puts up a wall, right? So like things couldn't get in that were trying to get in because I was so like, no, only this matters. And once I finally realized, and I remember the day this happened, like I had a sort of an epiphany during a meditation one time, that the Sam who was a writer was the same as Sam the actor, was the same as Sam who cooks dinner, was the same as Sam who does needlepoint, was the same as Sam who teaches, was the same as Sam who improvises, it was the same artist. It was all coming from the same place. These weren't different parts of me. It was all the same part of me, one part of me. The fact that my creativity liked to express in a lot of different ways was just that. It was a lot of different expressions of the same thing. So that calmed me down a lot. It was like the walls of Jericho came down. Like I was like, oh, and now the different parts of me could communicate. The part of me who liked to cook could communicate with the part who likes to write, could communicate with the actor, could communicate with the improviser. And there was a lot more strength and energy behind all of it because I was willing to access all of it and give credence to all of it and not be so controlling about it. I do like to have a bunch of kind of big projects going at the same time, like 3 or 4 sort of impossible things. I work best that way when I'm just this shy of too busy, right? Not quite in the red zone of too busy, but pretty busy. If I'm not busy enough, I get bored and I don't do anything. But that's what works for me. Other people do better just focusing on one thing. Other people do better, just having 2 projects and switching back and forth. And different seasons of your life are going to require different times. Jen's going through a time where she has very limited energy. So she's going to have to be really focused about what she spends her limited amount of energy on. And it may not be her creative projects right now. It might be her health and her husband's health. And that's fine. You're still having great ideas. You still want to be writing them down, put them in your idea catcher, see if you can't spend 15 minutes a day on something just to stay lit, just to stay aflame. But there isn't a right way. And don't look for the right way. Don't look for advice from other people. They're not going to know because they're not you. They're not you. That's a great question. Deb says, FYI, they're not doing the dishes for you. They're doing it for the household. I assume he uses dishes too. Excellent point. I'd like your contribution to the household. Please do the dishes, for sure. Leslie says, thank you, Sam, for leading the way with doing something you resist. So powerful and inspiring. Evernote is great. Yeah. Yeah, for sure, right? When I was talking to the team about this earlier in the week, Leonore says, wait a minute. So you're doing this because of how much you don't want to do it? And I said, yeah, that's right. And she goes, I kind of love it that that's how we make decisions here. I'm like, yeah, well, that's how we roll. Okay, let me hop over to Facebook, see if there's something there. Good, okay, that looks good. You can type in on there if you want. Let's see, I've got a lot of new messages here on the chat. Let's see. Reeve says, amen. Shaylin says, great, thank you so much, makes sense to me. Good. Deb adds, of course, having said that, appreciation goes a long way. Oh, guys, only positive reinforcement works. Only positive reinforcement works. Look, here's Cooper's comes to say hi. Yeah, you can't nag anybody into doing things. You can't even nag yourself into doing things. Hi, honey, nice to drop by. He's usually so introverted and shy. I'm a little surprised to see him. Here, want to say hi, Coop? No? Okay. Yeah, only positive reinforcement works. That's true with animals. It's true with people. It's true with yourself. Catch people doing something right and praise them forever. Yeah. Good. Let's see. Any other questions in here? If you've typed something and I haven't answered it, go ahead and maybe type it again or tell me to scroll back because I'm not seeing it, but it's also sort of skipping around a little bit. Good. Okay. Let's see what's happening. Oh, Cooper, you look so handsome on camera. All right. Okay, here's a question. Leslie said he's following me doing what he resists. Yeah, it's true. Deborah says, I've been practicing making offers around one-on-one mentoring with clients. I asked some friends who are not in this community to share this mentoring offer. 2 said no because they felt it was close to what they do. However, my impression from your work is that we're not really in competition. Is that correct? E.g. complementary rather than alternative, there's space for all. Yeah, that's my point of view, my personal point of view is that there's no such thing as competition. First of all, because people who take workshops are people who take workshops. The fact that somebody enrolls in a workshop or a coaching program with you just makes it more likely that they're going to enroll in a program with me. Nordstrom is very happy when someone shops at, Macy's, because shoppers are shoppers and buyers are buyers. More to the point, buyers are buyers. So anytime people are buying, that's good. And there's no limit, there's no limit to the amount of qualified people to work with you. There's no limit to the amount of money in the world. But that's an unusual point of view. Not everybody believes that. Some people are very attached to scarcity, and they're very protective of their list, and they're allowed to be. So that, they're just telling you they're not a good match for you. When you say, great, thank you very much, and move on. Like, no biggie. Again, there's plenty of people. There's no end. There's no end. There's so many people in the world. There's so many eligible people in the world. There's so many people who are looking for you right now. Like, it's not a question of finding the one person who's going to promote for you. It's a question of just getting in front of more people more of the time and making more offers. So good for you for making offers, and keep making them. Don't just make one and then stop. Keep talking to people about it. Daisy says, could you talk about how to support yourself during fundraising? I have to raise investment, apply for grants to make theater, but while I do that, I struggle to earn. Right, so you need a sustainable life, right? And that has to come first. So make sure, first of all, in your grant applications, make sure that you are applying for, funds for yourself to administrate the program and to pay yourself as a grant writer. Just because something's non-for-profit doesn't mean the staff doesn't get paid and that the talent doesn't get paid. But in the meantime, you need to have a financially sustainable life in the same way that you need to eat. Like, you need money to fund your life. So don't do one at the expense of the other. If your gas tank isn't full, you can't be very much good to the theater. So you're going to have to take a serious look at what you're doing and figure out how to bring in more money in a shorter amount of time. And you can do it doing things you love, doing things you're great at, doing things you can't believe people are paying you to do. It's not that hard, but it does require some focus and some commitment and a real rejection of this poverty mentality that so many artists cling to, like it's a flippin' security blanket. Like, no, I don't need money. I hate sales. I hate marketing. Really? I don't think that's true. I think you love money. I think money loves you. I think you would love to have money to, buy the good olives at the supermarket and take a trip to France and buy a beautiful gift for your nephew or buy yourself a new pair of shoes or whatever. Like I said, I'm not a big stuff person. I'm not saying you need to lead a fancy life or a materialistic life. I'm saying you want to be able to make the choices, to have the freedom to make choices that money gives you. So, and again, if you want more money in your life, you're going to have to focus on it some more. So, grants and applications, those are highly speculative activities. I'm not saying they're not going to work, but they're speculative and they take time. It's not, that money's not going to come in the door right away. So you need to make sure your immediate needs are met, your upcoming needs are met, you've got savings, money for taxes, all that needs to be put away and squared away before you start working on speculative long-term things. Does that make sense? Deborah says, I love that point of view. It feels so ample and fluid. Yeah, Christy says, I love that there's more than enough for everyone. She says Daisy says it makes great sense. Good. Because I don't mean to criticize you, sweetheart. I'm thrilled that you're, getting stuff together for the theater. I think that's great. But I want you to be fed and nourished as well. And like I said, and relaxed. I lived super poor broke for a super long time. I did all my shopping in thrift stores. All of my groceries were beans and rice. Like, I'm really good at living cheap, but it was exhausting. It turns out that it's a lot easier to make money than I ever thought it would be, and a lot more fun. And it just gives me a lot more freedom to do the work that I love to do. Christy says, yeah, she's not sure what happened with that text. Yeah, it did come out kind of funny. But I think I know what you meant. Good. Let's see. Vixie says, how do I reel in those people? Okay, do you need to be qualified to be a coach? Well, Vixie, that's a really interesting question. I'm trying to answer this responsibly because I have an opinion about it, but I also want to be responsible in my answer to you. No, you don't need to be qualified to be a coach. I myself have absolutely no certifications or qualifications whatsoever. I don't even have a college degree. I left Northwestern University because Second City offered me a job, and that seemed a lot more interesting. And I wasn't loving Northwestern, I gotta say. So no, you do not need qualifications to be a coach. You do, however, I think need some, but this is not to say that I think that all coaching should be unregulated or that anybody can just show up and do it. I think you need to be coached by a good coach. I think you need a code of ethics for yourself. I think you need to understand a lot about people and about boundaries. I think you need to understand a lot about business and marketing and sales and how to do those things ethically and with joy and purpose. So you do not need to be more qualified than you are to help people. I would just be careful, and I would be cautious of the word coach. I mean, there are coaching programs. There are people who will train you to be a coach, and many of those places are great. But you certainly don't need a qualification to help people. So think about the specific way in which you would like to help people. Like, oh, I help people eat less sugar, or I help parents, talk to their teenagers. I help women, in their 50s get in touch with their creativity. I help, think about what specifically you want to help. And then I always think of myself as more a teacher than a coach, because again, I'm not certified as a coach and I don't do the things that coaches do. I'm more of a teacher and a thought leader and a writer than I am a coach. So I hope that answers your question. How do I reel those people looking for me in? Yeah, so you need to magnetize yourself, right? You need to be, like I said, you need to be talking about their problem or their dream of a future in language that they themselves would use. You need to have a fairly irresistible offer, and that doesn't necessarily mean a cheap offer. In fact, for most of you, it's going to mean something more expensive. A lot of the time people aren't buying from you because you're too cheap. I remember when I was looking for a high-end coach, I had done pretty well in my business, but I knew I wanted to do better. I remember talking to a woman who was sort of a business coach, and she was great. She was really smart. She asked really good questions. And then she told me how much she charged, which I think was $700 a month. And I was like, you can't help me. You don't charge enough. Like, I know you probably could have helped me get to where I am right now, but you can't help me get to where I'm going in the future. I knew her consciousness wasn't where I needed to be because she wasn't charging enough. So there are probably people in your circle who are just waiting for you. They don't want to pay $30 for a program. They don't want to be in a room in a church basement with 10 other people paying $75. They want something more exclusive, more intensive, and more high end. But anyway, so you need to, whatever it is, you need to make the offer irresistible to them. And you need to make sure people know about it. If no one's complaining about your marketing, you are not doing enough marketing. People need to see an offer 7 to 9 times and often more than that, especially if it's just online. 7 to 9 times before they even recognize that anything's happening. So, but marketing is just great storytelling. So just be telling your story in a way that's compelling. And it's experimentation. Good. Okay. Selena says, thanks for everything. You're welcome. Looking to redefine my niche. Thoughts about how to approach this. Yeah, so I would, you're not giving me very much information to go on. Let's see, if I were going to redefine my niche, what would I do? Yeah, again, I would just start talking to those new people, and I would even do like deliberate interviews. Like I would line up maybe 5 or 10 people to talk to in that niche so that you really understand what are they struggling with? What do they need? What do they invest in? How do they talk to each other? How do they talk to themselves? Because you don't know what they need. You may think you know what they need, but you don't. So this is why you guys are on my list. You know that when I have you opt in for something, I almost always ask you a question. What are you struggling with? What are you procrastinating on? What are your issues around, yesterday's was cultivating intuition and self-care, because I want to know what language are you using to talk about those problems. And then I use that information. I use it as blog titles. I use them as email subject lines. I use them as course descriptions. Like I use them on my sales page. Your exact language. So that's how I would start. And then go where they are. Go where they are, wherever they are. What magazine are they reading? What are they, where are they hanging out? Reeve says, Sam, you started this by saying that you weren't quite sure why you were doing this morning. You mentioned that some of us might be distracted, confused, or hard on ourselves. How did you get into my journal this morning? Just to say, thank you for doing this. Thank you for your big, gigantic heart that leads your brave intuition and deep well of knowledge around creativity through all of what you give back. Oh, thanks. I now, an hour after my journal entry, feel gently focused on my coming time in the studio. Thank you for doing this morning. Tell your sister I'm so happy that you lost that bet. Thank you, Reeve. That's so kind of you to say. Thank you. And thank you for noticing. And yeah, that's it. It's really, this is exactly what we're talking about, right? Getting inside other people's heads, not making decisions for them, but really talking to them in a way that's meaningful to them. Sophia says, do you have some tips on how to always stay true to yourself as an artist and do the thing that the inside wants you to do? I sort of noticed it's scary, but usually the best thing for a career, even growth. Well, exactly. I think you have to do the work that only you can do. See, here's what's weird about creative people, and it took me a long time to figure this out too. So this is not a criticism. But we think everybody's like us, right? I mean, don't you sort of feel like everybody's like, yeah, well, you're a little different, you're a little weird, but we think everybody wakes up every day with a million ideas in their head. We think everybody wants to write a book and paint a painting and teach toddlers in Nicaragua and repair cars and do face painting on Sunday. Like, we think everybody's like that, and they're not. They're not. Not everybody has the calling you have. Not everybody has the skills and talents you have, not to mention as many skills and talents as you have. And they don't have as many ideas as you have. And they just don't feel that need to share the story in the same way that we do. My sister had a housewarming party some months ago now, maybe 6 or 8 months ago. And in the middle of the party, my nephew, who was at the time 7, basically kind of stopped the party to put on a show. And my sister was like, oh my God, my son is an ego freak. And I'm like, no, he's not an ego freak. I mean, he may be, but that's not what's going on. What's happening, and I remember feeling this when I was a kid, like there's a room full of people. Clearly, it's time for a show. Clearly, there must be a show. Why else would a room full of people get together? Like, there must be a show. And then like, well, nobody's doing a show. Apparently, I must do the show, right? And that desire to gather people and share the truth, to share the joy, to share the song, to share the sculpture, to share the fabric work, to share the experience of the moment, that emotional moment in time. Not everybody has that feeling. That doesn't occur to everybody. We think it occurs to them and they're just smart enough to not do it. It doesn't even cross their mind. So to understand that this desire you have, that's it. That is your engraved invitation from God. That is your certificate. That is signed, dated, stamped, delivered, positive, yes, go. Like, that's it. That's all the invitation you're going to get. And it's more than most people get. So stop treating it like, oh, is this real? Like, yeah, it doesn't get any more real. So yeah, do the work that is inside of you to do. So again, like I said at the beginning, we're just here breathing and we don't know how many breaths left we've got. So don't wait. Don't wait to do your work. Christy says, I am a home-taught coach. I learned so much from others like you, Sam. Good, good. Leslie says, can I share the Facebook URL again? I sure can. Let's see. Here we go. I can copy it, and I can put it right here in the chat to everyone. There you go. And speaking of Facebook, let me see if there's anything. Am I working on a new book? Asks Ingrid. I am working on a new book. Thank you for asking. It's taking its time. This book really has its own plan and its own way of coming to being. I started out last year, right around this time actually, handwriting it. I don't know why. It's just that's the way the project wanted to be. So it exists as a lot of handwritten notes and drawings. And it's part of my project this year to turn it into something. It may not be a book. And it's one of the great joys of living now in the time in which we live is that books don't have to be a book, right? It can be visuals. It can be an interactive experience. It can be a multimedia experience. It could be a deck of cards. It could be a web page or a website. It could be an interactive webinar. It could be a lot of things. So I'm waiting to see what it wants to be. But yes, I am working on a new book. Thank you. Let's see. Love that idea of a thought leader. Yeah, I'm a thought leader. Good. Any other questions? Anything else you're wondering about? I had sort of thought that we would go till about now. We'd go probably about 45 minutes or an hour, and we're at about 50 minutes. So good. These are great questions, you guys. Thank you so much for showing up and participating. It is my plan to start doing this most Friday mornings at 10 Pacific time. So you can put that in your calendar. I'll for sure do next week. I'll probably take off the 29th just because I'll be out of the country. But I think in 2018, this is kind of going to be our thing. So feel free to invite friends. If you want to talk about working with me, ping me and we can see what I have that might be a good fit for you. Otherwise, I'm so grateful for you. Because of you, I get to do what I love to do all day long. And I just can't think of anything better than that. So let's do one more breath just to close out this circle. Let me just check one more time. How do I maintain my flow when writing? You know, that's a problem I've never really had. It's easy for me to sit down and write, and then I just write. So I'm not a good person to ask about that. I don't believe in writer's block, if that helps. I just don't think it's a thing. I think what it is you've thought of things, and then you've said, oh, no, that's not good enough. And then your creativity is like, fine, you think of something. So that's what I think happens. So yeah, I don't believe in writer's block, if that helps. But I also am patient too. So great. Well, let's do one more round of breathing to close out this time together, this circle. I'm so glad that you were here. Deborah says, so grateful for you. I always take away inspiration and food for thought. Thank you, Sam. Wishing you clear skies. Yes, thank you. Thank you. All right, you ready, everybody? Let's inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you. Thank you all for doing this with me. Well, Leslie says, read Bird by Anne Lamott about writing. That's true. That's an excellent book. I highly recommend that book. Good. Happy Christmas. Love your positivity. Thank you. I love yours. Thanks, everybody. Happy Christmas.